Welcome everyone to today's webinar, The AI Decision Maze, Why Choosing the Right Starting Point Matters. I'm thrilled to have you join us as we navigate one of the most pressing and often perplexing challenges facing organizations today, making the right decisions about artificial intelligence. AI is everywhere in the headlines, and the pressure to do something with AI is real. But as our blog on this topic states, the real challenge isn't whether to adopt AI, it's how to make the right AI decisions in the right order to drive real value. Too often, organizations find themselves with duplicated investments, stalled pilots, and a sense of they're doing AI without truly moving the needle. Today, we'll explore why the sequence and alignment of your AI decisions matter just as much as the technologies themselves. We'll discuss how to move them from simply picking tools to charting a strategic journey, and how a clear decision matrix can help you cut through the noise and focus on what will make the biggest impact for your organization. So with me today is Demetrius Rogers, Planet's Chief Technology Officer for SLED and Commercial Operations. Prior to coming to Planet, Demetrius was the Deputy Chief Operating Officer for the Virginia Information Technologies Agency. Also with me is Andrew Sloan. Andrew's just joined Planet as a cloud strategist after years of working with Microsoft as a senior customer success account manager. Andrew will be monitoring the chat in case you have any questions, and we hope to see more of Andrew in the future as he may be hosting some of these sessions as well. Welcome, gentlemen. For more information about today's program, make sure you check out Demetrius's blog on this topic that was posted this week. We also included some useful links at the end of the presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's talk about the agenda. First, we're going to talk about why strategic alignment matters, the importance of sequencing AI decisions, and discuss common pitfalls. Then we'll move on and give you an overview of the Microsoft AI platforms and how each platform fits differently in organization maturity levels. Next, we'll discuss some decision logic, choosing the right AI tool, and give you a framework for evaluating productivity, automation, and transformation goals, matching your use cases to platforms, basically. Then we'll discuss governance and adoption, building governance structures for reasonable scale, adoption strategies and change management, risk tolerance and compliance. Lastly, we'll have a discussion on mapping real use cases to AI platforms. And of course, we'll save plenty of time for questions. I know we got a couple in advance that we're ready to answer. So before we get to that, let's go ahead and get started with a poll question. We always like to do these. These are anonymous. So the first question we wanted to ask, there's going to be two of these. We'll do one at the end. Where do you feel your organization is on the AI maturity journey? Are you just starting out? Are you starting to pilot some AI tools? Are you scaling successful pilots, building custom AI solutions, or kind of unsure right now? No problem. These are anonymous answers, so we'd love to hear your feedback. So Demetrius, let's go ahead and get started. Again, Andrew is manning the chat window, so if you have questions, please put them in. But Demetrius, talk to us about the AI decision challenge and why this all matters.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here with you folks today, and I hope you guys enjoy this session. And if you have any questions, like Ken said, please do not hesitate to put them in the chat, and we'll be happy to address them. So why this decision matters. This is a conversation that I have, daily, but definitely weekly at this point, right? With all types of different executive leaders across many different industries, right? And they're saying, hey, I'm thinking about AI. I have a couple of use cases. I have some scenarios that we've been pondering and going about as a team. And different vendors are coming in talking about different things. And so one of the first questions that they recognize is, there's not a one size fits all for AI, right? There's different business needs. Those different business needs require different approaches. Those different approaches will require one or a multitude of solutions. The challenge that you have that forces you to get this right is you want to ensure that you do not create duplicative effort or duplicative costs, right? So choosing the wrong AI capability for your use case can result in significant time loss and missed opportunities for you and your team. And then having that strategic framework, right? Leaders need to have some guidance in terms of being able to understand what's the best decision to make this scalable that's alignment with our business strategy, right? We have a certain vision for business outcomes that we want to achieve. We want to do that in a timely fashion, and we want to do that the right way so we can avoid significant work, significant throwaway work is what I call it. So, here's some of the things we're hearing from our customers, right? I need to align a use case to a technology platform. Everybody I talk to has some form of AI, right? Everything is being put under the category of AI. I'm sure you guys have all experienced that, right? And then there's a massive ability of AI, a massive availability of products that are different from each vendors, some from the same vendor. I'm having trouble discerning the differences between the capabilities and what's the right product, right? I also need to understand once I put this in my environment, how do I govern it? What does that look like from a cross-departmental organizational standpoint, right? How long is the implementation time frame? What are my customization capabilities? Are these configurable AI? Do I have long-term adoption and user support? These are all questions that most leaders are facing. I'd be surprised if you guys aren't facing it as well on this call. But then what about the realignment of work outcomes, right? How is this going to change the paradigm? What about what business value am I going to be able to not only achieve, but also prove, right? So these are things that most of our customers we're hearing being stated as we work with them and start moving them forward down their AI journey. So I'm only going to spend about 30 seconds on the slide. I think you've all seen this. This is just a great slide that shows the breadth and depth of AI capabilities that are out there and why it's important to understand the capabilities of AI services, including Azure, and which enablement platform is best to provide that capability.
Long story short, Microsoft's built AI into every single tool in their toolbox, pretty much, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's three different Microsoft domains, right? You have Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is focused on the end user, right? Productivity for AI for knowledge workers. You have Copilot Studio, right? Low code, no code automation, and Azure AI Foundry. The way I like to correlate this for a lot of people that helps them understand this and be able to correlate to something in their mind that we've all been through is when we had the advent of the cloud, right? So when we had the advent of the cloud, we all remember the SaaS, PaaS, and infrastructure as a service conversations and how to discern those because there was a lot of confusion when the cloud first came out, right? And so the way I like to frame it for folks so they can quickly recall it and then when they're having these conversations is think of M365 Copilot as the SaaS version of AI, right? It's out of the box. It's not much you have to do to get it going. Copilot Studio is low code, no code PaaS. AI, right? PaaS for AI and Azure AI Foundry is more like the infrastructure as a service. So if you had to relate that model, it's an easy way to recall that when you're having that conversation in terms of maximal capability, maximal functionality, maximum integration capabilities when you're looking at Azure AI Foundry. So one of the things that through these conversations, it drove us to create what we call our AI decision matrix, right? We recognize very early on, along with our customers, that there's not a single AI tool that can be used to achieve every business outcome, right? So we wanted to walk them through, making it simple for them to understand. We wanted to help our users and our customers determine what the appropriate AI tool is to meet their specific business objectives. So this we decided to outside of covering non-Microsoft tools, we said from a Microsoft standpoint, we're going to walk through M365 Copilot, Azure AI Foundry, and Copilot Studio, right? Again, personal productivity versus business functionality automation. But before we go into that, we want to talk about before you start looking at the tools, again, we don't want to show up with a solution to a problem we get to identify. You have to start looking at what are your use cases? What are the things that you're trying to accomplish? This is very important in this journey because what it does is helps you make sure you ideate on the problems first, right? You're saying, okay, um, you want to define the use cases, identify what data sources you need. What are the specific ROI potential, right? You want to ideate for potential, not possibility, right? Evaluate after that ideation session in terms of technology, and then you want to solve for outcomes and results. This is very important because this will drive the strategy that you're going to adopt and help you in terms of being able to um, you know check to see how you're progressing quickly because you're going to identify some of the use cases are short term, some are going to be midterm, and some of them will be more strategic. So M365 Copilot. right? This is the Copilot for your everyday end user. It's customer facing, is directly tied into Microsoft already. You can leverage it across your M365 tenant. It's already grounded in your organization's ecosystem and from a security perspective with Graph. So your target users are your end users, knowledge workers, individual contributors across all of your departments and your organization. This is the AI for everyone, right? In terms, and it's actually going to usually be the first interaction they're going to have from an user perspective with AI, this in Copilot chat. So you start looking at what are the business outcomes that I can solve with M365 Copilot? Because it's not just for checking your emails, right? I know that's the initial go-to when people say, "Hey, I want to understand what happened while I was out of the office," or note taking. But it actually can increase your productivity, right? It can automate specific tasks that you may have to do daily from a user perspective. It can actually help you summarize documents faster to be able to get insights from that information, right? You also want to be able to do better collaboration. You want to facilitate more effective meetings through real-time summarization, but also being able to retain information, and focus on higher value strategic work, right? So M365 is very helpful. It's actually one of the first areas that our customers and users start, getting accustomed to leveraging AI and they're interacting with it on a daily basis.
Right. And then there's really just two versions of that, right? There's the chat version, which is everybody can get access to because it doesn't cost anything, right? Unless you're going to use it with
Mhm.
agents, or the M365 Copilot licensed user, who then it's built into all those tools directly that you can access. Yeah.
Absolutely. And to add to that, the Copilot chat, is when you're saying, "Hey, I don't need to have specific access to everything in my M365 tenant." And it's a smarter, more secure solution than, Chat GPT on the internet, where you want to make sure your IP is not being exposed to those models.
Yeah, lots safer model there.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
And then you look at, okay, where can I leverage Copilot Studio? Because I may have a need to develop some custom things that, I want to connect things like ServiceNow or other tool sets, right? This is where Copilot Studio comes in because they have a lot of connectors already developed. It's a low code, no code solution. You're able to extend your capabilities that you have with M365 Copilot. You can do chatbots and plugins. Again, ITSM resources connections is very common where people want to integrate those types of things. And the target user for this is really those business users, right? Those power users, the people who are looking to say, "Hey, I want to develop a department-wide AI assistant as opposed to something that I'm going to use just for me," right? So it can be department-wide, it could be for a specific group or specific function that will be leveraged to create business productivity across a larger set of end users.
Yeah, think of like the classic HR solution where you're building an agent for people to access that knowledge of all the information they need to know about HR, right?
That's an excellent example, right? Because we've all had one thing in common. I mean, we all had a first day somewhere, and you know that once you do that first day, you're inundated with all types of information, right? And so, one of the common use cases that HR assistant, because it'd be nice where you didn't have to have that embarrassing moment where you have to go back and ask for information or go search through a bunch of documents to figure out, hey, what was our PTO policy, or what was stated upon this topic. You can actually interact with the agent, ask that question, and get your answer.
Yeah, perfect example. I was meeting with a customer a couple weeks ago, and they were getting over 1,200 requests for information during their benefits cycle, right? So like they could create an agent and handle all those events without even using any human resources that they have on staff. So great example of how you can really start doing more with less, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
So some of the business outcomes we just touched on it with the HR system, but here's some other examples, right? Tailored employee support, right? IT or finance co-pilots that can provide, additional answers for anything that you needed to connect to based on data sources. Customer service, is a great example. Your internal service desk, it's a 24/7 agent, doesn't need to take lunch. But so being able to look at how do we streamline certain activities with custom copilots. We want to connect to our CRM system, our ERP, right? These are some use cases for Copilot Studio that help people start to formulate in their mind. Oh, this is how I separate the M365 Copilot conversation um, to the Copilot Studio conversation where I need to extend my M365 capabilities. And then when you start talking about the Azure AI Foundry, this is where you start looking at, hey, I have some highly complex integrations I want to do. I want to start looking at agentic AI. I may have a lot of configuration and customization needs. I need to develop a specific custom model. This is where you're going to look to Azure AI Foundry, right? Those target users are people that, those are the professionals, your data scientists, your AI research teams, your uh, high customized engineers. These are for complex and unique solutions that allow you the maximum flexibility and capability to integrate AI into your environment. Some of those potential outcomes is, hey, I need to develop proprietary AI models, right? Specialized for my use cases, whether that be fraud detection or advanced diagnostics. You want to have you want to customize specific models. You want to have your own LLMs. You want to be able to create, new products and services, create that robust customer experience, be able to have those end-to-end pipelines. Those are areas of Azure AI Foundry. So sometimes we get into a conversation with customers where we think, hey, we can do this based on, depending on where the data is and depending on where the system resides, we may start thinking it was a Copilot Studio project, and it can, we very quickly during those design sessions identify, oh, this is something based on these additional systems you want to connect, the level of complexity, this is something that will extend into an Azure AI Foundry type of project or best suited, right? So, these are conversations that we'll have or you will have internally as you start looking at the different use cases and how those map.
Yeah, so think about the Azure Enterprise apps that you have and how great it would be to AI enable those apps using these capabilities. That's kind of what we're talking about here.
So one of the things we like to cover in this decision matrix that I mentioned earlier is the primary purpose of what you're trying to accomplish, who your target end users, create an understanding of the complexity capabilities, and also configure the customization capabilities, right? So think again, like I said earlier on the SaaS, PaaS, and infrastructure as a service correlation, you look at M365, right? It's for its primary purpose is individual productivity, right? But however, you can build some plugins and conversational AIs um, um, with leveraging that, right? And then you start saying with Copilot Studio, and then so the for M365 Copilot, you're looking at knowledge workers. The complexity is low. It's out of the box. Again, it's minimal configuration. When you start looking at Copilot Studio, it's business users, power users, those low code, no code. But you have a lot of customization capabilities, right? So for custom flows, you can also integrate Power Automate into that. So there's a lot of different things that come into play there. And then when you start focusing on Azure AI Foundry, you start talking about those highly skilled resources you have in your environment. But this is something that requires a deeper level of expertise. So there's definitely going to be your IT folks, but you have the maximum capability in terms of what you can do with AI. So some of the scenario-based guidance that we start talking to when we start looking at, hey, how should I be approaching it? We say, look, when you're looking at employee focus, choose M365 Copilot, right? It's the immediate value. You can start getting immediate returns on it, especially when you integrate. You make sure you couple it with training. I won't say especially when, because you always should do that. But also being able to say, look, here's some immediate actions that I can do for Copilot Studio. I want to offload information from my service desk, but then I want to start looking at creating a strategic roadmap for some of those things I want to do. Is going to require a little longer lead time. And so that's when we start looking at those Azure AI Foundry capabilities. The other things that customers like to ask me is, okay, so this is helpful, but doesn't tell me what do I need to do to get ready, right? What is my time to value based on these technologies, right? What's the investment level on each of these? So we created this document to help to guide them through, right? So from a technical expertise standpoint for M365 Copilot, it's really focused on organizational training, right? End user training, organizational change management to help them understand how to interact with it. Those are things that are very important on an M365 standpoint, right? You got to help them understand how can I leverage it? How does it pertain to me and the function that I do every single day, right? And so, again, the time to value is immediate, meaning days. Investment level is low. It's a subscription-based solution. The risk tolerance is low, and then you have minimal customization needs. When you start looking at Copilot Studio, hey, what's the expertise you need as a business analyst, right? Business analyst type skills. Depending on what you're trying to do, the time and value is usually can be in weeks to months, depending on the engagement. Investment level is medium. It is also development plus subscription. You have medium risk tolerance and you have moderate customization needs. When you start looking at Azure AI Foundry, it's a longer lead time, depending on what you're trying to do. It's weeks to months as well. Investment level is high. Your risk tolerance is a little bit higher because you have more opportunities to get things wrong, right? It's not the technology capability, it's the different systems you're integrating with, the customization you may be doing, et cetera. But you have that extensive customization needs. And as long as you have extensive customization needs, we all know that that's more opportunity to encounter certain issues with our appropriate governance structure in place. So the business impact potential. This is great to understand. Something I always want to understand as I look at any technology and what it does for me, potentially can do for me and my organization. Right? We look at hey, M365 is can drive cost reduction. Again, that's an immediate impact through employee productivity. You can measure the value that's being created by, hey, time it used to take me, 5 hours to do this every day. Now it takes me 30 minutes, something to that effect. You look at operational efficiency again, you start looking at M365 and Copilot Studio to deliver those gains at both the individual and department levels, right? And then you start looking at revenue enhancement. Azure AI Foundry has probably the highest potential in this area because this is where you can start developing new capabilities and new products to enhance your business, right? The M365 Copilot capability is more indirect, what I'll call soft costs, for lack of a better term, where when you start thinking at the Azure AI Foundry and Copilot Studio, those types of things can have a larger impact on your bottom lines. And then you look at strategic advantage, that's the same as Azure AI Foundry as well. So one of the things you guys, everybody's talking about is agents, right? And so this is kind of, we're going to touch base on agents, ecosystems, and what those economics look like. So next slide. So agents are primarily created in two places, right? Copilot Studio and Azure AI Foundry. Even when you're leveraging M365, if you're going to create new agents, most of that is done with everything Copilot Studio, right? It just comes down to charging, right? And so you look at how do you define topics and trigger phases? What data sources do you need to integrate with? How are you going to design your conversational flows? This again is ideal for departmental, enterprise-wide, or customer-facing scenarios. Typically, I have if you have two different departments, you need to have some capabilities. If you may have an organization-wide application, you can leverage Copilot Studio for that. When you start saying, "Hey, I want some more sophisticated custom AI agents," this is where you're going to leverage AI Foundry. You're going to look at, hey, custom model development. Again, I have some advanced ML pipelines I want to do. There's a lot of logic that's involved in this application, and I want to leverage AI Foundry for that. So this is just a kind of a quick recap, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. This is like a takeaway sheet that we usually give. Again, we do this as one-on-one sessions for people to understand, and we like to give them this takeaway. So some of the questions you should be asking yourself as you look down the guidance path is, am I focused on productivity versus transformation, right? Is our initial goals for this project or whatever it is, are we looking to improve individual productivity or are we looking to transform workflows? Again, starting with M65 Copilot is the easy button, scale to studio, and then as depending on the immediate term of the project and as your capabilities evolve, you want to look to Foundry, right? And then you start talking about action taking agents, right? Do you need actions to actually do things? Or do you just need them to provide information or summarize, right? So that's when you start looking at Copilot Studio and Azure AI Foundry. These are better suited for task automation and autonomous agent behaviors. And then you talk about system integration. How important is it? Is it to integrate your M365 information to other data sets? Uh, Azure AI Foundry is ideal because it has the broadest integration and orchestration capabilities. And then you talk about governance requirements, right? Looking at, do we need governance frameworks on AI usage, auditing, and ethical constraints? This is table stakes across the board for me. The answer to the question is always yes, right? There are going to be more conversations you're going to have on some scenarios than others, but especially when you're leveraging Azure AI Foundry, because you want to focus on your AI, your policy, your lifecycle governance. How are you going to control AI drift? All these different things that come up in terms of being able to govern your data. So, you know, it's this is a question you should. A lot of people have high level governance framework for managing their AI. You should have a specific group around this that's heavily focused on your AI and your AI changing your environment.
Yeah, and I'd like to just add something there too, like especially with Copilot Studio, a lot of this is done in the Power Platform environment on the back end for managing environments and how you do cost management and everything else. So it's really important that you have a decent governance strategy for Power Platform in place before tackling agents. I just want to throw that out there.
I would concur. And the other
Yeah.
thing I'll touch base before we move on off of this, why governance is so important, is because you have to also be able to understand specifically for folks that have a compliance environment where they have a lot of compliance requirements, being able to understand who can that agent take, where that agent is getting its information from. If it's an autonomous agent, where does that agent get its direction from, et cetera, et cetera. So those are things that are usually covered in the governance board.
Cost recovery is another big one, right? A lot of these agents are going to drive cost every time someone, hits it with a question. So understanding how you're going to do cost recovery, do you need to do it on a department level? If so, then how's that going to impact your environmental architecture for developing agents and where they're going to go and how you're going to build back costs and things like that. So lots of things to think about from a governance standpoint.
Absolutely.
Yep. Especially in large, like I came from state government. Yeah, that would definitely be needed. All
Yeah.
right. Key takeaways there.
So the key takeaways, right? M365 is a force multiplier for your users, right, within your ecosystem, right? This is primarily to focus on data that's inside M365 tenant, and you don't have to, from a security perspective, it's grounded in permissions they already have, right? So we have the security conversation a lot. Um, However, it is important to note that you should look at your tenant and your sharing your permissions prior to implementing it. I don't want to gloss over that. And we do help customers with that as well as Microsoft does as well. From a Copilot Studio standpoint, right? Your low code approach, task specific assistance, you want to be able to extend capabilities from your M365 Copilot into other business workflows. That's something that you can do easily with Copilot Studio, right? You want to understand from Azure AI Foundry, again, it's platform for deep custom AI innovation. And then you start looking at the license models, right? Licensing model is M365 Copilot is per user. The custom solutions that you would do for Azure AI Foundry and Copilot Studio usually typically are usage based. Certain things in Copilot Studio, if you have an M365 Copilot license, if the data resides in your M365 tenant, there is no additional charge. If data is outside of that, you start looking at message packs and pay as you go.
I think that ends the formal presentation. We have a couple more things we want to make sure you stick around for here, though. So please stick around for the few more slot minutes here. So the next question here is, what challenge is most significant for your organization's AI strategy? Is it lack of clear decision framework, skill and talent gaps? Is it governance and compliance concerns, which I think is probably a huge one? Unclear ROI or business value, or is there something else that we haven't brought up today? We'd love to hear your comments also. If you want to throw some questions in the chat window, we're ready to, or if you want to come off mute, feel free to raise your hand and we'll take the question live as well. All right, we'll give that a couple more seconds here for that chat to come in, for that poll to come in. All
Looks like
right.
50% is governance and
Yeah,
compliance concerns.
yeah, which makes sense. Yeah, definitely makes sense. 60% compliance and governance. That's definitely a huge need here. Going back to the first, the first poll question where we asked where you're at, most people are just kicking the tires, right? They're piloting AI tools, trying to understand how to manage them, operationalize them, probably configure them. So that makes total sense there.
The question that I have, if somebody's brave enough to come off mute, on the governance and compliance concerns, what are the challenges that are serving as barriers for you? No takers?
Nope.
Okay.
One that I had is after speaking with Microsoft, specifically on Copilot, it seems like they've kind of done a 180 on kind of security best practices. And instead of a deny by default, have allowed Copilot access to everything in your environment by default. Whereas we have certain, export controlled data or stuff that has to live in its enclave, and it's kind of scattered throughout, kind of based on, uh, whichever business unit is operating with it, and just
Mhm.
making sure that we're not overexposing Copilot and having it train on data that um, it it shouldn't have access to, essentially.
Understood. And is this data like in SharePoint, Teams, files, or Teams or OneDrive? And do you
All
have
of the
you got
above. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay. And so are you guys using sensitivity labels and things like that?
Yes, though adoption has been slow.
Got it.
Yeah. That's slow everywhere. Have you looked at RSS, restricted site search, or restricted content discovery at all? That helps kind of scope what can be seen by Copilot. That's another suggestion I would have.
I have not. Also dealing with being in a GCC high tenant where we do
Oh,
not have
okay.
full feature parity.
Sure, sure.
Understood.
So
Yeah.
SharePoint Advanced Management offers some of those capabilities. So when it does come available to you, I definitely take a look at SharePoint Advanced Management and look at the restricted site search and the restricted content discovery. Some of them have some drawbacks, so you definitely got to make sure it fits your use case, though.
Yes.
All
Thank
right.
you for that.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
comments. That's great,
I
Chris. Thank
appreciate
you.
you coming off mute and sharing that information with us.
Anybody else? We've got a couple questions that came in advance, but we'll hold off on them unless there's anybody has any other live questions that they want to ask. All
Just
right.
hit the
Well,
questions.
yeah. So I'll ask the question. I guess Demetrius, if you want to answer it or whatever. The question that came in advance, one of the questions that came in advance was, I'm interested in thoughts surrounding the trustworthiness of the results from the LLMs and strategies to identify hallucinations versus facts. This is especially important when working with topics that may be new and may not have been part of the trained data sets for these LLMs.
Yeah.
That's the question. Yeah.
That's a good question, right? I think a lot of people treat responses from LLMs as fact. Um, and it's important to remember that they're not. In reality, they are probability responses, right? And so when I what I what I tell people is you got to focus on three things: grounding, transparency, and governance, right? And when I say grounding is where you got to make sure that you're leveraging RAG, retrieval augmented generation. That means making sure your AI is connected to trusted data sources, trusted and up-to-date data sources, like your internal knowledge bases, if you have any regulatory content, or approved data sets. From a transparency perspective, is really making sure that model is you understand where the data is being cited from, right? If you can create a confidence score so that you can trust that statement, but also making sure that when it comes back, it's actually citing its source. That helps you with the hallucination problem. And then governance and validation, right? Testing your model against known scenarios,
Yeah.
monitoring the hallucination rates, and keeping a person in the loop or a human in the loop is the proper way to say it, for those critical items, right? And making sure that you're reviewing that specifically in some of the more high compliance environments. So again, AI isn't just automatic. It's something that you have to intentionally focus on. So that data grounding and governance is what's going to help your LLMs be more reliable.
Question the results. Check those where they came from, right? All right.
Yes.
Yep. So what the next question, last question I think that we got in advance was when will ChatGPT Model 5 be available in Copilot for GCC? And then when will I be able to paste screenshots into Copilot?
Yeah, I don't have the answer for the screenshots in the Copilot. We'd have to follow back up on that question.
Yeah.
And then in the GPT-5, I have to look at the Microsoft roadmap on that as well.
Yeah.
I thought I saw something on that not too long ago, but I'm not 100% sure. And I don't want to give the wrong information out. So what we'll do is we'll respond to that question after we confirm it.
Absolutely. Yep. And you'll get a copy of this presentation and a link to the recording afterwards. We'll put it in that response. So in case you can make sure it takes a note of that. Excellent.
Yes.
All right, so let's move on. We got a couple more things to talk about here. Some things for strategic readiness options here, where they need to go
Yes.
next.
Yeah. So one of the things that people, again, depending on where you are in your journey, if you're looking at Copilot, a lot of people have rolled out Copilot um, already, or they're not, or they rolled out in limited fashion. You can, we look at Copilot in terms of day zero, day one, and day two. Day two is hey, I've rolled it out after some early adopters, but now I need to get it across to my wider organization, right? I need to focus on the adoption and expansion, department by department. This is a very key thing to make sure you're getting the value out of Copilot based on your investment. Having a COE setup for Copilot Studio where you're actually promoting and endorsing those internal capabilities for domain specific builds of specific copilots and agents, and then looking at Azure AI Foundry implementations, right, where you're saying, hey, I want to start a transformation effort, right? We're gonna embrace it. It's gonna be enterprise scale, and this is the things that you need to look at from a strategic readiness perspective. Areas of opportunity that we work with our customers on every single day. And just from an awareness perspective, we do have a free workshop called AI Envisioning that it's a benefit of our You Already Own It sessions. If you guys weren't aware of that, this is where it can help you identify those high value use cases that come out of specific one-on-one sessions with you and your team. Develop a business case for those implementations, but then also be able to map that to, hey, here are the use cases that you can get some immediate returns on by going down this path, and here's the proper AI to leverage with that, right? To help you with moving that into a POC, a pilot, into production, right? This is kind of the evolution of time of being able to, take your AI visions and make them real. And then on the adoption and expansion for MCC5 Copilot, again, focusing on that continuous adoption and expansion is key. Making sure always continue to identify, those use cases, looking at your ROI metrics, establishing how you're going to determine how you're measuring that ROI, but then focus on that continuous use case development so you can push it out to larger enterprises, as I stated earlier. But these are things that we hope people focus on. If they don't know how to do it, we'll help you focus on that every single day.
The special emphasis on the monitoring and adoption there, of keeping an eye on that. Just because you go live, I mean, you still have a lot of work to do on a monthly basis, right? To make sure that you're monitoring the results, optimizing the results, making sure that you're checking for orphaned agents. There's a whole litany of things that need to be done once you go live to keep this momentum going and keep it secure and keep it tied to your governance, as well as making sure it's efficient and optimized. So
Yeah,
definitely some work to do
absolutely. I've
there.
been using Copilot now for probably about a year or so, and I can tell you that I am much more efficient with it today than I was when I first started leveraging it, because we have a focus on that continuous adoption, continuous learning aspect, and making sure we're sharing information about prompts and all that kind of stuff that help show us, hey, this is where I could get significant value. Things that used to take me X amount of time now it takes me Y. So it's very important to focus on the day two.
I'm sure the sponsors that are buying the licenses are going, I want to know about those adoption metrics.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is just some information on our day two, which again focusing on adoption and usage across it, use case development and end user training. We've all probably been in IT for a very long time. I don't, it's the easy part is enabling the widgets. The hard part is make sure the users can actually leverage it to see value out of it, and that's where we help on the day two side.
Thanks, Demetrius, for that. Let me wrap things up. Obviously, you're very familiar with our You Already Own It program. If you're here, if you're not, obviously, we have over 22 workshops now available to you free of charge, no sales, no selling. Like this is our way of investing in this relationship and hoping that we can become a trusted advisor to you all moving forward. So please take advantage of this. If there's something here that may not be for you, but for somebody else, please share it with other folks inside your organization. And reach out to us about getting signed up for these free one-on-one workshops. We would love to hear from you. Just to wrap up a couple things, so that we do have a free, as part of the You Already Own It program, the AI Decision Matrix for tech execs. This is all about what Demetrius was talking about, ideating, some of the envisioning these use cases, making sure that you've got a plan and helping you prioritize these use cases so that maybe you would move forward with a proof of concept eventually and put it into production. So this is all about getting the creative juices flowing for your executives, understanding your pain points, putting them into an envisioning session. And this is one-on-one with you all, obviously. And the results, I've seen the results, and there's a nice document that comes with this at the end of the day to kind of help you prioritize what makes sense to move forward with if you're interested in moving forward with some of these use cases from a business perspective. Then we also have this Copilot agent briefing. It's kind of a 2-hour session. The first hour is all about what agents are, the 4 different types of agents. This is very much for the business folks. The second hour is all about some of the things I mentioned about, and we talked about with governance, right? Like, how do you manage this once it goes live? What's the back end of this look like in Power Platform to manage agents at scale? And once you go live, and talk about the consumption and the billing and the adoption metrics and all this kind of stuff. So it's a little bit for everybody. The business would be for the first hour, and then the technical folks for the second hour. It's a great briefing. If you haven't taken it, I would strongly suggest you sign up for this one if you're looking at doing some agents in the future. And then finally, again, Azure AI, OpenAI envisioning. This is if you got some enterprise apps and you need some help really putting this together. We're happy to help you with creating these envisioning sessions and use cases. This is specifically for Azure use cases. So let us know if you're interested in some of those. We'd be happy to get you set up with this as well. And then if you're interested in, like the first of the 3 of these that I mentioned, we're happy to do this one-on-one with you all as well, as far as the matrix of decisions and how to make those decisions based on your use cases. So reach out to your cloud strategist, your account team. We're happy to have those conversations, just like we had today, talking about the pros and cons and what tools to use when. Finally, as always, we always have helpful links. We throw in some adoption links here on the different various technologies we talked about today. Some great resources here. If you haven't seen them, definitely take a look at them. So I just put them here as a resource for you all. Again, you'll have the recording and the slideshow afterwards to take a look at that. A couple other things we just want to make sure you're aware of. Save the date. I think this is, I think we're going early in November because of Thanksgiving. So November 20th is the next You Already Own It session. So please mark your calendar, save the date for this. We look forward to you coming back. We always want to know how we did today, want to know whether or not this was useful or not. So level 1 to 5, or I guess we're down to a 2 scale now, 1 and 2. So let us know how we did today. We'd love to hear your feedback. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with the thought that organizations making real strides with AI aren't necessarily the ones spending the most money, but they're the ones that are making disciplined, well-sequenced decisions about where they want to start, where they're ready, deliver quick wins, and build maturities step by step. Remember, the journey to AI success isn't about chasing every new technology. It's about clarity, alignment, and making strategic decisions that create lasting value. I encourage you all to take the insights from today's session back to your teams, ask the tough questions, the challenge assumptions, and use frameworks like the AI Decision Matrix to guide your next steps. Thank you for joining us today. We encourage you to reach out to your cloud strategist, as I mentioned, and the You Already Own It program for further guidance and support for all your initiatives. That is a wrap. I want to thank you all for joining us today, especially Demetrius for presenting and Andrew standing by for questions. So we're ending early, so we're happy to sit around for a few more minutes here and open the mic again for questions. If anybody has any questions, let us know. We'll stick around for a few minutes. Otherwise, that's a wrap. And if you do have a question, feel free to come off mute, or you can even chat it either way. We'll go ahead and stop the recording as well. That might, in case you don't want to ask your question on the recording.